Okay, so let's start analyzing the game that I played today. Let's just begin by noting that this will be my first uh, recording of my attempt to climb the rating ladder on chess.com on the Blitz uh, time control 3 plus 2. I'm currently rated almost 2000 at the and the rapid, but I've been having a lot of trouble climbing the ladder on the Blitz time control. I lose a lot of games sometimes. So let's start by analyzing this first game, and we'll do a daily game, see how far I can get. All right, so let's go. I'm starting with black in this position. My opponent was rated 1550. Chess player at 1388. So let's go. So opponent start with e4. I counter with e5. Opponent plays knight f3, pressuring the pawn on e5. So I defend. It's going into a classical game. And then my opponent plays the Scotch game. So we go into the knight c5 variation. And my opponent plays knight b3, attacking my bishop. So I retreat and maintain the bishop on the diagonal. Okay, so next time, opponent plays e2. And to be honest, I'm not very well versed on this variation. Um, so I guess I play d6, preventing him from expanding on the center. Um, According to the computer, the best move is to develop the knight to e7. But oh well. Um, my opponent plays knight c3, which I mean is a solid move. Uh, Computer prefers bishop e3. I don't think it makes much a difference. I mean, uh, it's a good move. Um, and then I play knight f6. Now this allows my opponent to pin my knight, um, which I would probably, if the opponent does that, I would probably challenge the knight. I mean, if my opponent plays bishop b5, I was planning on playing a6 and immediately challenging the knight. I don't want to be attacked with knight uh, d5, which would be a bad thing. And if my opponent had withdrawn, I would consider playing knight. I mean bishop. I mean the pawn to g4. Uh, but anyway, the computer doesn't think that I'm too bad here, but I'm not sure. I mean, I'm kind of constrained in that position, but well, the opponent didn't go for that. He developed the bishop, so we arrived at very theoretical variation according to the database. Next, well, I castled. Computer doesn't think it's the best move, but it really doesn't matter a lot. Um, then he castles queenside, which usually means that the opponent is trying to attack me on the king side. So I put my rook on a better square, attacking the e4 pawn, which is not a real attack because I mean the opponent can always, if I capture the pawn, the opponent can always, after capturing, they can always um capture my bishop on b6 and then have two attackers on the e4 square. So eh, it's not, but I mean, it seems okay. A little bit worse, but not by much. So then my opponent develops, I mean, reinforces the center. Uh, and I mean, this would prepare g4 and start storming my position. Um, so yeah, I would need to defend myself. The computer doesn't like it that much. I mean, it thinks that it would have been better, although it says that it's the best move. But okay, so I move my queen off of the d file. I don't want it to be subject to the pressure of the X-ray from the rook on d1. Um, then my opponent does a move that doesn't make any sense. I mean, sure, it prevents my knight from jumping to b4, but I mean, I don't have any prospect there, so I wasn't planning on doing anything. So it's kind of a waste of time. I mean, I think that the opponent should start storming my king side with d4, e4, h4, and then dislodge my knight. Um, but okay. Um, the computer seems to like moving the king to a safer square instead of creating a hook for a possible later attack on my side. But anyway, then I move my knight to d5. I was planning on moving my bishop to e6 and then attacking the queen. Um, but the computer seems to not like it very much. And then my opponent pins my knight. So, I mean, it's not the worst move, but it seems to give up the advantage. Then I move my queen to e6. I'm trying to get out of the pin because I was afraid of knight d5. Um, I mean, the computer seems to like c6, preventing the knight from jumping, although it creates a weakness on d6. I mean, I could have handled it better there, but so it looked like it's a missed opportunity to equalize the position. Then he captures my knight, which I thought wasn't the best move. I mean, we're just exchanging pieces, and he relieves the pressure that I have here. And then he starts pressuring moves the queen away so that he can develop his bishop. Again, I mean, it would have been best to attack my queen with the knight on d5, and I would have been forced to retreat to d8. Uh, hmm. So and then I developed my bishop. Um, the computer still thinks that c6 was best. I was afraid of dropping this pawn, the pawn on d6, because if I move on d6, I was afraid. I mean that I would lose a pawn, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do next. The computer seems to think that I would have had an advantage if I just developed my bishop and then put my rook, one of my rooks on d1. I mean, it would have been um, a better move, but I didn't think about that. So so he puts the knight on d5, and So I capture it, and the computer seems to like that. I mean, I mean, I take away his most active piece in the center. My bishop wasn't doing a lot, so then here, uh, I protected the pawn. I was again afraid of c6 because I would be dropping the d6 pawn. Um, I didn't really evaluate this position correctly. I mean, I was down on the clock, so and then he develops his bishop, um, which gave me the opportunity to give a check on g4, like this, and then potentially capturing the pawn. I was afraid of opening up lines uh, that would attack my king, but my bishop on b6 was very active and would have prevented any piece from landing on g1. So I didn't even think about that. So I moved my rook to protect the d6 pawn and prepare c6. Uh, and then he moves his king off the diagonal that would, because I mean, I think he saw that I could give him a check and capture the pawn. So I kicked the queen out of the position. And then next, um, I mean, pretty much I'm in a good spot here. I mean, my knight is very well placed. Um, if he tries to dislodge the knight with f4, I mean, I always have a place where I can go. I mean, I can go to g6 and then open up the center. So I don't. I mean, that would weaken the e4 pawn. So, oh, sorry. Okay. So the opponent retreats with the queen, capture here. Okay. Then I decided to open up the center and relieve the pressure. I mean, my rook is looking at his queen, so it's here. I thought that the opponent could have attacked my knight, but then I could have opened the position. I mean, taking the pawn. So I'm actually threatening to do that and gives him an isolated pawn. So he captures. I capture with the rook. The computer doesn't seem to like it, but Uh, okay, so he moves the queen away, and then I double my rooks, so I'm in a good position here. He captures, I capture. Then he tries to attack my rook, proposes a trade. I respond by putting my queen on the file. Um, and according to the computer, this is not a precise move. But anyway, so we capture, and then he moves the queen, um, posing a trade. So at this point, I mean, the position is symmetrical, so I think why not? Let's capture, and then I move my put my a pawn to prevent his knight from landing on e4. I didn't want his knight to become active. Then he attacks my knight, so I need to make a decision. Um, so I capture, and under normal circumstances, I mean, this would be pretty much a draw. I mean, we have opposite colored bishops, and the pawns are symmetrical, so it's this would be a draw. The only thing is that I'm down on the clock. I have 36 seconds, and my opponent still has 2 minutes and change. So think he was gunning to win on time, but since we have increment, I mean that's very unlikely to happen in such a simple position. I mean, I don't have to calculate a lot. So he starts bringing the king, attack a pawn. So to make him, I wanted him to create some weaknesses, and then I put my bishop on a good diagonal, and I start bringing my king up. So he advances a pawn, so I stop him, and I fix a pawn on the same color of the bishop. Then he moves a pawn to b3, which you shouldn't do in these type of positions. I mean, that pawn just is in the way of the bishop, of his bishop. So I start bringing my king to the center. Then I move my knight away from the attack. And I'm starting to bring my bishop even closer to the center. So my king's a little bit better than his king. So, and then he does move his pawn, uh, taking advantage of the fact that my f5 pawn is pinned. But I mean, I could have taken and then moved my pawn to h6, but I defended, so I wanted to keep options open. Then he moves his king. Not sure what he was trying to accomplish. Probably to kick my bishop out of the position. So I advance with my king and attack his pawn. So he needs to defend. So he captures, and then I capture. So okay, so he attacks my bishop, and I move it away. Then when he attacks my pawn on a5, I didn't want to capture because that would give him an outside pawn that he could potentially advance to create an external pass pawn, which would not be very good for me since his bishop controls uh, this potentially controls the square where the pawn could promote. So I defend my pawn. Then he starts moving the king to the king side. So I advance my pawn. I want to put my pawn on h4 and fix his pawns to squares where he can't attack them. So he advances the pawn on to b5, which is not the best move. So I mean that relieves the pressure on my a pawn. So I capture him, and then I get an external pass pawn. So this pawn now could be a problem for him. So I just defend it. I don't want to advance it just yet. And then he advances his pawn. So this move restricts his bishop. So uh, I start to move my bishop to a better square, trying to probe. And then I make a mistake here. According to the computer, I was already winning. After he moves his king away from the queen side, he moved it from e2 to f2. I could have advanced my pawn, and his bishop would have had a hard time defending this. So he defends, so I missed an opportunity there. Then I put my bishop on c5, attacking his king. So he needs to decide where he wants to go. Uh, I mean, it's still pretty much a draw, but okay. So he moves his king to defend his h pawn, which uh, I mean, he's taking away his king from the queen side. So this is starting to become a problem for him. He makes a big mistake. So I fix his pawn and prevent his king from advancing. So now his king is tied to the king side. Oh, um, so he moves again, and then I start to move my king. I want to attack his pawns and tie up his bishop. So he moves his king again, and I advance my pawn, so he can't attack it anymore. Um, the computer doesn't think it's the best move, but I mean it's good enough, I think. Then he moves his bishop away from the queen side. So um, I attack his pawn, so I'm threatening to win his pawns on the queen side. And now he can only defend the pawn. Actually, he can't defend it because if you try to defend it, I advance my pawn. So he's already lost here. And then the computer's he can't do anything, so I advance my pawn, and he basically can't stop it. So and I think that's where the uh, yeah, that's the last move of the game. Um, so I gained a few points. Let's see. So let's see how many points did I gain here. I yeah, I went from 1611 to 1618, so 7 points. So I think it's a good start, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. Cheers.